Hello, hello, and welcome to the Wise Immigrant podcast by Miss Immigrant USA. How are you, Brian?
Doing good. How are you?
Thank you so much for accepting the invitation to be and sharing with us about yourself. So, Brian, first of all, for everyone who's listening to us and in the future who's going to be listening to us, this is Brian Varela, as I pronounce it right.
Yes.
Great.
Perfect.
And he's a candidate for the actually on the side for the US Congress, District 7 in New Jersey. And we are here today, Brian, because we would like you to share with the audience, with the people in New Jersey, people all over the country, about you, your story, where you're coming from, what caused you to take this path, which we know it's a pretty hard path, and you need to really have something strong to drive you in order to even get into politics and try to make a change for everyone. So please,
Yeah, of
this is
course.
this is for you. We are here for you.
Well, I really appreciate that. Yeah, look, I'm a first generation Colombian American. My parents are Colombian immigrants, and like a lot of immigrants in this country, they came here to build a better life. And they worked hard. They had a variety of blue collar jobs at any point in life. My mom was a waitress, a factory worker. My dad worked, he was a janitor, a valet, a chef, eventually became a truck driver. And my parents did something that I feel is maybe impossible these days, right? They worked hard with their blue collar jobs. They were actually able to save money. They bought a house and they started a business together, right? And they ultimately made a lot of sacrifices so that my brother and I would have a better life.
Yeah.
And it worked. It worked. My parents worked really hard, like a lot of people in the immigrant community. And then came the Great Recession. And that's when my parents' business got leveled. And that happened to be
Was
as
it
I was coming
was it
up.
the 2008?
Yes, correct. Yep, that one. And so when that happened, that was college for me. And I think that's something that is very well known amongst the immigrant community and first generation kids of immigrants, obviously, right? Is the fact that the strongest vehicle for social mobility here in our country is a good education. And I knew that. Like a lot of folks in our communities know that. And so I knew I had to go to college, even if my parents couldn't afford it. And so I got a full time job, and I worked full time while I went to school till full time, and I finished in 3.5 years. I graduated cum laude with honors. Later on in life, I went on to get my MBA from UNC, and I'm working on a second master's now in international relations from Seton Hall. But what I will say is that for someone like myself, I'm also a very proud beneficiary of Pell Grants, right? And for people like me, I know for me at least, like if it wasn't for Pell Grants, I don't know if I would have gone to school. I don't
I'm
know if I would
sorry,
have
what
been able
is
to
that?
graduate.
I'm not familiar.
Yeah, so Pell Grants, it's basically federal support to help people like myself go to college. So it's really meant for very like low income types of families. And so I was a beneficiary of that, and that allowed me to go to school. And for me, that's one of the reasons that what I'm seeing right now on behalf of the federal government and their attack on things like Pell Grants and some of these programs, right? To me, it's a travesty because these are programs that are not people, abusing the system or whatever they want to call it, right? These are programs that empower people like myself to be able to build a better life. I'll talk about this in a little bit, but I'm someone who's built a business. I employ over 100 people. Like that wouldn't have happened if I didn't have some of these opportunities afforded to me earlier on, right? I mean, ultimately, I think that a lot of folks from our community, they're really trying to make their biggest contributions to society, right? They're trying to build a better life for themselves, and as an extension of that, benefit the communities around them, benefit the economy around them. And I think that that's something this administration just doesn't seem to want to believe or comprehend. I'm a big supporter in education. I support a lot of programs around education. I support expanding access to education, and not necessarily just for your degrees, right? Whether we're looking K-8 or whether we're looking at full-time kindergarten or universal childcare, these are all things that I'm behind, because not only is it helping our communities, but one can argue even more importantly, right, is that the long-term economic impacts for Americans as a whole is huge. We're talking about folks that are helping us build a wider middle class, and all of those things eventually lead to a stronger economy for everyone. So after college, I got into the corporate world, and when that happened, my mom was sick. She got diagnosed with cancer literally a month after I started my career. And that was a big blow to our family. And so my parents never recovered from the Great Recession, but when that happened, they actually ended up eventually going completely out of business. And like a lot of immigrants in our communities, right, we're a tightly knit group, and our families are very close. And so as a result, I felt I was compelled, right? I felt compelled to step up for my family. And so at 22, 23 years old, I became my family's breadwinner. And I got firsthand experience at what it's like to be behind your mortgage payments and your credit card payments and your car payments. And, it took years, but I'm proud to say that I was able to save my childhood home from foreclosure. But it was tough, right? It was very rough. And my experience around that just really showed me how hard it is for a lot of folks in this country. I mean, it was hard back then. I can't even begin to imagine now with the way the economy is. And that experience exposed me early on to what a lot of folks are growing through, right? And I happened to go through it at a younger age. 2 years after my mom's diagnosis, she ended up passing. And as I mentioned earlier, I have a younger brother, and he was 13 at the time. And so I took on raising my younger brother. And I know this is a story that sounds like, wow, like that's really hard. But I think that a lot of folks don't realize just how often things like this happen, especially within not just around everyone, but even within the immigrant community, right? Maybe the age is a little different, maybe the relationship's a little bit different, but ultimately, like, we've all had to have been there for a loved one. And so that experience just showed me really how hard it is for a lot of families trying to raise teenagers and keep up with the job and the bills. And again, like, I don't even know how they do it now. It was hard back then. Now with everything through the roof, I don't understand. Eventually, I built a business. I got into childcare in December of 19. I built that up through COVID. I'm at 10 locations now. As I said earlier, I employ over 100 people. But I think that my story is really a reflection of the American dream, right? Parents who came here, who struggled, who sacrificed, who worked hard to make sure that their kids had a better life. And here I am, the product of immigrant parents, who's built one of the fastest growing companies in the country. And that story is not necessarily too unique, let's say, right? Because we know that there's a lot of immigrants or kids of immigrants who go on to create jobs and contribute to the economy in a significant way, we can say, right? And so ultimately, when it came down to Congress, one of the things that I realized is that we are missing a diversity of perspective in our representation. We've got a lot of great lawyers and doctors and folks that have political careers. But I think that a lot of the reason that Democrats saw such a big shift towards Trump in 24 is because of the fact that we weren't able to communicate with working and middle class families. Like, I remember the Democrats talking about how great the economy was, and that's cool, right? They weren't wrong, right? Stock market was high, unemployment was low. But the problem that I saw is that my parents never owned stock, right? So they're not seeing that reality on the ground. And I think that part of that was due to a lack of diversity of perspective down in DC and within the Democratic Party. And I think that someone who's a product of immigrants, who's built a business, who's a young father, right? I think that we can represent our constituency across the country in a much better way when more voices like mine are really introduced into the dialogue. And anyway, I know I've rambled quite a bit, so I'll stop now.
Oh, no, that's great. That's really, you kind of summarized everything, like where you're coming from and what drove you, the family problems, your mom, and I'm so sorry about your mom. It's never easy to go through something like this, and then taking care about your brother. But the good thing is this is actually what shaped you, and what you said, that it shapes so many different individuals, and especially immigrants, because I can see that as well in our organization throughout the communities that we go and we talk to people. That's actually what people struggle, and very often there's nobody to represent and bring this voice to the bigger picture, to make the difference, to, like you said, about the program, about the education, how important it is. So I congratulate you, and I envy you for taking this on yourself, because that's a big job. And so now, can you share a little bit about what involved, because we like to educate people, and that's one of the things is that we want more immigrants and in general citizens to know and start being more involved in the public life, because after all, this is our decisions that shape where we live and how our lives look like. So can you share a little bit about the process, how you started, how it was, maybe to inspire someone that, oh, maybe I am not too young, to do this, to run for this. Maybe it's not so difficult. So could you share a little bit about maybe the struggles, a little bit about, the easy parts that you thought were harder, but actually they are not?
Yeah. So, first of all, the great thing about a democracy is that anyone can run. And I think that, especially younger folks who want to get involved, it's a lot easier to run when you're younger than once you have a family and a mortgage and all of that stuff. That makes it a little bit harder. But even if you do, it's fine, right? And also you don't have to on day one run for Congress. You can run for county commissioner, for a legislative seat. You can run for mayor. You can run for council. You could literally even run for county committee, right? Just to kind of get your foot in the door. And I think that for someone like myself, starting out was definitely hard, right? Going into this race, very much self-admittedly an underdog, right? Not a lot of establishment connections or Washington, D.C. connections. But the way you get there is just by starting, right? But I'll go even further back. I think what really, when I really got involved was when I got a little bit more experience in the way our government works and understanding things like gerrymandering, and Citizens United, and for someone like myself, that's really what hooked me in, because I realized we hear everyone complaining about government, we hear everyone complaining about the two-party system, right? Everyone complains about politics in America, but it's not enough. If that's the complaints, are a lot of it are surface level, you're kind of just seeing what's on the surface. But if you look a little bit deeper, you'll see that there is an infrastructure that is basically, I believe, creating an environment conducive to a lot of the things that we see, right? And so for me, it was making sure that I'm advocating for things like term limits, ranked choice voting, campaign finance reform, right? I think we need to ban congressional stock trading in Congress. I think we need to implement a lifetime ban on members of Congress becoming lobbyists. So all of those things, I believe, are going to create a pure democracy, and a democracy where what we have are people who are going down to D.C. to do good work for the sake of doing good work, right? Look, I think it's crazy for someone to walk into Congress on day one, be worth, maybe a couple $100,000, and then they leave, 16 years later, and they're worth, $100 million. That's crazy, right? And I think that we see that more often than we should. We should never see that coming from members of Congress, unless they genuinely also, represented a district and somehow started a business or won the lottery. Anyway, a lot of the wealth that is accumulated in Congress typically comes from their stock portfolio, right? And so that's what got me involved. But then from there, I became more involved advocating. I became the chair and the founder of the Morris Demp's Hispanic Caucus, and really wanted to bring different voices to the table. I helped a lot of Democrats in red-leaning areas to either run for office or run and win, seats that have not been blue in a very long time, if ever, in and out of the district. And then here I am running for this race, right? But I think that for me specifically, I always knew I wanted to get into public service. I just didn't know at what level. and life kind of just thrusted me into it as decisions I made just kept leading more and more into that. And so I think my message for people who maybe want to get involved, have thought about it, is like, you just got to jump, right? And ideally, like, for what I think is important is to build the relationships early on. Like, get involved in your community, get involved with maybe activist groups or nonprofit groups of issues you care about. Just do the good work, right? Do the work, right? And the more you do the work, right, the deeper your network goes, and the more opportunities present themselves. And then eventually you'll find yourself in a place where you may have a chance to run for something. And now you've built a lot of like the groundwork. I think that what we see is when people jump straight into running for something, and by the way, like, if that's you, good, go do it, right? But they jump in, like, especially like if you're running for the first time, like, you jump in and you don't really know like how this works or what's going on. So like, it's important to just surround yourself with good people. I would say that if you've got the time, right, and if you have the runway, really, it's really runway more so than time, right? You want to get involved at some point, but you don't know what yet. Like, start building that network, find the issues you care about, work to enhance them, work to improve things, right? Eventually get involved with your local party, and from there, just let and that's really planting seeds. Then you just got to let the flowers bloom.
Was there like a specific cut-off moment that when you make the decision, okay, I'm going to do it? And what was that, what thought came to your mind?
Yeah, so like a lot of people in this country, I felt very weird on Wednesday, the day after the election. I honestly didn't want to get out of bed. I even felt a little nauseous, or very nauseous, right? And so that wasn't the moment, but that's kind of what started accelerating. Because again, I knew I wanted to run for something at some point. I just didn't know what or when. And I've ran before. I would say not real races, right? The first one was kind of where I'm that first example of person I'm talking about, that I just jumped in not knowing anything, and that was a baptism by fire. And the second time was to help a ballot. Really, there was no chance in that second race. I did it to help Sue Altman, who was running for Congress in 24, to make sure she had a straight, line down in my town. But for me, this is what I consider my first real race, and for me, it started with Trump winning, and it just started building on, reflecting on, well, I did a lot this cycle, right? I helped with fundraising. I personally knocked over 3,000 doors for Sue Altman, and I organized, by the way, she's the congressional candidate in the 24 cycle here in this district. I organized 2 trips out to Bucks County, getting volunteers out there to knock for Harris, right? I did texting, and I did a lot, right? And I think reflecting back on, well, you did all that, and a lot of people did a lot, and like, it just didn't move. And so I was thinking of like, how can I do more, right? Do I need to do more websites? Do I need to do more? Do I need to give out more money, right? Do I need to walk more? And it was, I wasn't landing at a good spot. And then eventually it dawned on me that I could run for this seat. And so I had conversations with different people, right? People who were involved in the race that last cycle, friends, people who I've developed relationships with. And as we're kind of exploring the idea, it's something that seems a little more and more logical as we're moving in that direction. I talked about the lack of diversity of perspective down in DC, right? I'm personally someone who thinks that we need a fighter right now, and I just don't think we see enough fight coming out from people, especially right now down in Congress. I mean, we've got a Republican Congress that's pretty much laying down, right, and letting Trump do whatever they want. And it was through these series of days and conversations and ideas and talks that eventually I decided, yeah, you know what, I think I want to do this. And here we are, 12, 13, 14 months later.
Wow. Yeah, so it was a well-thought decision that you built in your mind, and you took it on yourself. And
yeah.
And your district is quite big. How are you managing getting to different parts of it?
You drive a lot. A lot of driving. You try to be smart with your scheduling and all of that, but I mean, ultimately, like, when was it on Saturday? I mean, I was in New Providence for a morning meeting. Then I drove to, gosh, I don't even remember where, but it was probably about an hour in the other direction for another meeting. And then it was an hour back to New Providence, the same town that I had just left, for another meeting, right? So it's just a lot of driving. I think you have to be, in this district in particular, you just got to come to terms with the fact that you're going to be driving all over the place. And I like driving. So, the only thing about driving is that it takes time away from campaigning, although there's things you can do while you're driving, right? But not a lot, because you're driving. Right. I think that it's in this district, you got to be prepared to be a road warrior.
What do you find the most satisfying right now in doing all this?
I mean, for someone like myself, I really enjoy people. Like, I love meeting people. I love talking to people. And so the most fulfilling part of this is actually when I'm out and about and, like, meeting people for the first time, or maybe meet people that I've met before, and we're at events, we're at rallies, we're at XYZ, and then just chatting with them, right? I think that part for me is very, very enjoyable. It is the people voter aspect of this, where you're out and you're engaging with folks in your community.
Okay, that's great. And I'm always as well curious, like, in order to be successful and to win, you need to create a lot of partnerships, get a lot of supports from different individuals, organizations, all those endorsements, and sometimes even you with people that you don't align with them 100%, if you know what I mean. How is this going on in your campaign, and how are you building those relationships, or you're I'm sorry, or you're relying on the old ones, and what would help you as well?
Yeah, no, I would say that most of my relationships are new relationships, right? Running for Congress, I mean, I've met more people in the last year than I've met, like, probably the 10 years before that. And that's the truth, because you meet a lot of people. So it is very new relationship driven. And I think that because I'm in a Democratic primary, there's a bit more common ground. So when we're talking about the issues, right, I think that the parts where we disagree are smaller parts, and typically at this point it's maybe more of like a disagreement on, like, profiles, backgrounds of, like, every lanes, right, things that we're doing in this race. But I have obviously in this district, being so competitive, right, there is exposure to folks who are not on the same part of the ideological spectrum as you are. People who see life differently, and I think that that's like an interesting experience, because a lot of us think that we have, I mean, we do, there's a lot of polarization in this country, but we see it as, like, two very, like, distinct camps that are at very strong odds with each other. But I'll tell you something, right? I think that when you have Trump's policies that are raising the cost of living for everyone, you've got an illegal war in Iran, you've got these tariffs that were overturned, thankfully, right? I mean, the damage has been done, right? You've got a president who wants to pull us out of NATO and is pretty much closer with our adversaries and our allies. It all matters here at home. Like, it all matters here at home, and where it matters is especially probably I would say where people in general feel it the most is the impacts on our economy. Because our credibility on the international stage plays into that. Decisions that the White House makes play into that, right? These ICE attacks on our immigrant communities, that plays into that, significantly, right? And so I think that as Democrats, we feel that Republicans are absolutely aligned with Trump and absolutely not in any sort of common ground with Democrats. But I like to remind people that just because you voted for Trump doesn't mean that you're immune to the economy, right? Just because you lean more to the right doesn't give you a hall pass where your cost of living isn't spiraling out of control, or you have like a secret like healthcare plan that Democrats don't have access to, right? So all that to say is that I think whether you're more liberal or more conservative or whatever labels you want to assign, no one is escaping this economy, right? We're all being hurt by it. And I think that when it comes to this district, when you can focus on a message of economic populism and you can lay out how you're going to improve the economy and the things you're going to vote for to move the country in that direction, to me, that's not left versus right. As James Tallarico encapsulates this very well, it's top versus bottom, right? So a lot of the people who voted for Trump in 24, right, we saw many of them swing back here in New Jersey specifically to Mikey Sherrill, right? Governor Sherrill. Why? Because she did a great job messaging about the economy, just the way Trump did in 24, right? Obviously different styles and different ideas, but I think it's hard to argue that Trump didn't out-message us on affordability, right? And that was the message in 24, and that was the message in 25, and what led to Democrat success around the country. And I think that's going to be the same critical message in 26, because you have a president who campaigned on cost of living. 2 years later, he's done the exact opposite of what he promised he would do. And so I think when it comes to reaching to voters across the aisle, people who don't have as much common ground with you ideologically, if you can focus on the economy and you can talk about good policies that we all agree are going to move the economy forward, I think you're going to win a lot of votes.
Yes, that's well said, Brian. How did your family reacted when you shared with them that you are going to run?
No. So that I did not share that I was going to run. We made that decision together because there's no way. There's no way that I could have done this without my wife's support. Mm-hmm. We have a little girl who's almost 3. She'll be 3 in a few weeks now. And so, there's no way that this could ever have happened if I didn't have full buy-in, and I would never make a decision without having buy-in from the people closest around me. And quite frankly, if my wife was not on board with this, there's just no way I could do this. It'd be impossible. I really admire people who have. I have 1 kid, right? I can only imagine people who have a lot more kids, right? And it's hard. It's hard. So I think that when it comes to, for me, in my lived experience, you need your tribe with you to be able to do this well.
Yes. That's a lot of time that you have to devote and be away from the family, or maybe you're taking them with you a little bit on the trail.
I try to, but it's a little hard to do that. But I do try to whenever I can. But what I'll say is that because we live in the digital age of Zoom, like we are right now, believe it or not, I'm actually home a lot, right? Even though I'm working a lot of the time, right? But because I'm home, there's every once in a while I'll get 5 minutes to spare, right? And I'll go and hang out with my family, right? My wife and I, right, we try to make a point to share a meal every once in a while, whether we go out for a quick lunch, or if I can try to ensure that we're scheduling a dinner, right? So we try to really make it work. And then there are times where I really have to step in. So as a matter of fact, I keep looking at the time. My wife is dealing with a work emergency, and so fortunately, I think this doesn't happen often, if at all, but I was able to step in, and so I'm going to be taking my daughter to her gymnastics class, right? And that's going to be nice, right? So finding these small little opportunities when they came up, and then just really being able to take advantage of them. And I think for anyone who's running for office or wants to run for office, family time's important, but it's not necessarily only about how much time you spend, but it's the quality of that time, right? I see a lot of, I know judgment, right? We all live our lives the way we think it's best, but for me, I see a lot of parents with their kids, but the parents are on the phone most of the time, and look, that's fine. That's every family is a little bit different, right? But for me, and the way that I like to operate, and the way that I believe, it's if I'm going to be with my daughter for 5 minutes, then I'm going to be with my daughter for 5 minutes, right? And it's going to be all about her for those 5 minutes, right? And so I think parents beat themselves up because even if you're not running for office, you're working an 8 to 5, a 9 to 5, right? You got to get home, you got to cook dinner, you got to do the laundry, you got to clean around the house, I would say that a lot of parents not running for office are in the same position that I'm in, right? And so my advice is that, it's when you are with your family or with your kids, right? It's really ensuring that quality of time with them is as much as you can give. And that's really all about focus and discipline, right? And I'm just very focused on hugging and kissing and playing with my little one, right? And for me, I will tell you that with very few exceptions, I actually feel that I have been very present for my family, and it's because I know that when I'm with them, I am with them.
Yeah.
And so that would be my advice.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm so happy for you, and your daughter get to grow up and see her dad doing amazing things. That's going to be a huge role model for her. So before we finish, I have a last question to not hold you. As the name of the podcast is Wise Immigrants, and I would like you to share some wisdom from yourself to our audience. What it would be?
Man, I think so. That's a great question. And I am going to keep it to one thing. So I think that one of the things that as a business owner and as I've been evolving in my entrepreneurial career is that oftentimes we measure the hours that we put into something. And I think that as immigrants, that's probably a metric we look at, whether we're working or we're whatever it is that we're doing, right? And that's fine. It's good to have some sort of metric to go back on. But the other thing too that I would say is you also got to figure out how to be smart, right? Be smart about that time, right? And I think that there's a reason that we see a lot of people that come from immigrant parents or from the immigrant community who go heavy into real estate, right? We've got a lot of entrepreneurship amongst immigrants, and I would say that trading hours for dollars, you're limited, right? But if you can ensure that you're making the right disciplined decisions and the right investments decisions early on, right? That's how you build wealth. So I would say for immigrants that are listening to this podcast, right, it's figure out how you can duplicate yourself, right? And for someone like me and my inclinations, I really love business, right? And it's getting involved in business and building business, right? And I think that ultimately you want your families to be successful, and you want to make sure your kids have everything that within reason, right? And so just look at the hours you're spending on stuff, but also determine if it was a smart use of hours. And I think that is not very political advice, but you kind of put me on the spot there, so just kind of what popped into my head.
We have to do another episode about business and exploring and expanding for immigrants regarding that, because you have a lot of, like you said, you have a lot of experience, and for sure people can learn a lot from you. So Brian, thank you so much. We are crossing our fingers for you. We'll be following you, and maybe in a few months we do a follow-up and see how it goes, and maybe you have some more things to share with us. And once again, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And just to plug it in here, if you guys want to check out our website, go to varelaforcongress.com. It's VARELA for Congress. Or you can follow us on socials as well. It's Varela4NJ, where donations are welcome, but we would really love volunteers. We're building a really strong grassroots army. And so thank you to you guys for having me on the podcast, and it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Brian. See you next time.
Take care. Thank you.